Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 4th season, we're looking at Kenneth Branagh's 2011 film, Thor. I'm Matthew Fox from theethicalpanda.com.
And I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
Today we're talking about minute 16, which begins with our heroes riding into the stars and ends with Heimdall wanting to know how an enemy slipped his watch.
We have 2 fantastic guests joining us today. We have Krissy, Lenz, and Nathan Blackwell from the most excellent 80s movie podcast, back from season 1. Welcome, you 2.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, we're super excited. Well, I'm speaking for both of us. We are both very excited to be here.
It's true. That is accurate.
Well, I didn't get to record you last time, obviously, so I'm really excited to have you on. You're talking about the movies of my childhood, which I adore. So I just have to start by asking, what is the most excellent 80s movie?
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That seems a good answer.
Science. Fact.
Nathan, is that one you also agree with?
Well, I'm not going to disagree, but I would maybe agree in addition that Raiders of the Lost Ark is also the most excellent 80s movie.
And as always, technically Nathan is correct, but I am here to be the loudest and
But
the
you're
loudest.
emotionally correct. Yes.
Well, I'll need to post you to my episode I did on my own podcast a while ago about time travel, where we concluded that Bill and Ted's is the only perfectly logical time travel movie because the characters have absolutely no agency.
Fact.
So we'll have that discussion later. We're going to get into this minute of Thor right after this message.
So what do you think about Heimdall? How do you think people really feel when they're traveling through the Bifrost? We are having all these great conversations this week with our guests, but we would love to continue the conversation with you about this movie, everything we're discussing, and more. We have a great group of Marvel fans over in our Discord community, and we would love to have you join us there to continue this conversation with all of us. Just head to truestory.fm/Marvel Movie Minute and click on the Discord link.
Let me ask you, too, just to jump right off the bat, what did you notice in this first minute? What kind of jumped out at you?
It was exciting to see the Bifrost, and it was exciting to revisit Thor after all this time. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've revisited the first Thor movie, and it was great to see baby Hemsworth and with his blonde eyebrows and
Oof.
Yeah.
And little baby Hiddleston, little baby Tommy. Oh my God, they're
he looked the youngest. Yeah,
so adorable.
Yeah, he looks like such a child in this compared to where he grows up to.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I know he's probably like 24, 25 when the movie's made, but still, he just looks so young.
At minimum, yeah.
Uh-huh. So we start with that great shot. It's the glorious ride. And I love the way it's kind of going from day into starry night. We're really getting to see, I think we're supposed to think Asgard is flat because it is that the thing people used to say about the flat earth, that you would literally ride off the edge of the world and the water just goes down. Andy, tell us more about what we're kind of seeing in that scene of them riding across the bridge and the light changing from daylight into the stars of space.
It's interesting that the way that they decided to construct it, because it is very much like, setting this idea of Asgard being like this meteor, basically a flat meteor. We've kind of seen it when we flew into it at the, in the first few minutes, where it just seems like on the underside, it's like some crystalline peak or something. And then on the top side, it's flat for the city and an ocean. Apparently we have the Asgard Sea right here. But then also it's got like a strange atmosphere that we kind of have a view of, where when they ride out, it's daylight. And as they kind of continue down the Rainbow Bridge toward Heimdall's observatory, you can see like the starry sky and everything. And it's very much a very full sky full of, I don't know, it looks like we're looking at all the different nebulas, I guess, different
nebulae.
types of nebulae. Right, exactly.
They had an interesting needle to thread on this one, where they had to make magic kind of like technology and technology kind of like magic. At this point, they weren't, this is way before Doctor Strange, where they were tiptoeing into the whole concept of magic. And so they had to kind of like present the idea as like, oh, our technology is so advanced that it looks like magic. So nothing here can actually really look 100% magic. There has to be just a slight buy-in that it is actually technology.
I think that's a great point, and especially in the next minute, we're going to see that like it looks like there's gears working in the Bifrost, to make it seem mechanical in that kind of way.
Almost like steampunkian, but like the fanciest of all, the royalist and fanciest of all the steampunkiest ideas, because
all the bronze is perfectly polished.
It's so pretty. Not a fingerprint anywhere. Heimdall never just like straightens this helmet at all. Mm-hmm. It's all just glorious and gorgeous and pointy and full of little designs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's round Asgardian conspiracy theorists?
That would be kind of awesome, I mean, if even in today's
world,
since
it's essentially flat, we can see it that it's basically like a flat city.
Like somebody who's never ventured down the bridge, who's always been in the city.
Yeah,
no. I can't see the edges, so it must be round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look at the other planets; they're obviously round.
I like to think that Asgardians are a little more evolved than we humans, but certainly possible. If we can have flat earthers today, they might have round earthers up there.
Yeah, we might even be blaming Asgardians for them coming down and like prove it, like because again, Asgard seems flat. Maybe they created the flat earther concepts by just hanging out here too much. Loose lips, you drink at a tavern, you just get going and show some pictures. I don't know.
Deep cuts here now. Now I need to find out like what percentage of flat earthers come from Scandinavia, because then you might be onto something there. We got to find out.
Okay, let's get on it.
So it sort of looks like the Time Lord city. It looks like Gallifrey. It looks like Gallifrey. Whenever you see Gallifrey with that like sort of crumbly underneath and then the big picturesque top, which is also like magic as technology. Mm-hmm. Timey-wimey.
Well, I guess that's next level architecture. That's where we go next, right?
That's the next plan. When we start building on meteors, I guess we'll be doing the same thing. But it did make me wonder, it's like, is there sun? So like, how does this work? Is the sun always up then? Or is this like flat pancake that they're living on? Does it just like flip around the sun, and that's how they have sunlight and stuff? And like so many questions, like how do they have gravity? Like what all these concepts I don't fully understand it.
They take gravity pills, Andy.
Oh, right. I forgot. We never
don't
get to see
your
that
gravity pill.
See, and that's the thing. Like that's the danger of telling us everything is science, because then you start to ask, well, why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As you were saying, Krissy, we then do get that great shot of Heimdall. It starts sort of, very off kilter. We just kind of see it's a kind of slide down from the top of his helmet. And of course, this is our first introduction to one of my favorite actors, Idris Elba. Mm-hmm. So let's do we talk about the character or the actor first?
I'd say let's talk about the actor, because at least for anyone who's done deep dives into like the making of Marvel, it's well known that he didn't love his time playing this character.
Yeah.
Idris Elba, fantastic actor. My personal pick for James Bond.
Yeah.
Great actor in everything I see him. But to be fair, sometimes making these movies, especially if you have a small supporting role, it's probably not fun. Put in harnesses, weird suits, contacts, lots of makeup, and your job is to shovel exposition at people.
Yeah, I have to say, having just seen The Suicide Squad that he's a star of, I do feel like DC won in terms of the best use of this actor. Like Heimdall, he's great as Heimdall, and we'll talk about that in a second, but his actor to be used just like this, it just breaks my heart. Yeah. Especially, you mentioned the contacts, like there's a lot of great things about Idris Elba. Part of it is his gorgeous, gorgeous dark brown eyes. And so every time I see those contacts, I'm just like, you cut away so much of his face. Why don't you let us see his gorgeous eyes? Mm-hmm. Come on, people.
Right. It's like if you gave him Matrix sunglasses,
Yeah.
I love the eyes though that they went with. Like it adds to this like mystical character who can see, across the universe through all the 9 realms. I think there's something really cool about that. And I mean, I wouldn't want to put the contacts in myself. I hate wearing contacts, but I think that for the look of the character, I think that it works well.
plot perspective versus thirst perspective. You're probably right, but I just have to complain.
Exactly.
I think too that like when you see, Thor and Loki approach, and as we already said, it's little baby Hiddleston, a little baby Hemsworth, little baby Hemi and Hemi, and they are, these gods who are making themselves so big and important in that. And then they walk up to Heimdall and just like, oh, oops, that's a man. Like we were very impressed with this until you showed us this. And now it's like he just has, because I think Idris Elba brings that to the Heimdall part, is just like panning down on him. You're like, oh, turns out he's in charge. Turns out this is the person who is the grown up in charge of this situation.
If they're really working on making characters feel like they carry a lot of authority, it certainly is Odin, and at this point Heimdall would be ranked second. Like those two, the way that they have been shot, it's very much in these stoic power positions, and I think that it certainly holds true here, because Heimdall seems like he's in charge and he's not up for any hooliganry.
Thor, Loki shenanigans.
This group. Exactly.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense of like, this is the palace guard who has had the princes like running around underfoot and just never takes their BS, He's so, and this is something Elba does so well, he's just so, not even nonchalant, but just non-reactive, The future king of this whole world is riding up to him, and he's not batting an eyelash.
Well, obviously he's powerful. I mean, they get off their horses like a mile away from him. Yeah. Like they don't even approach. They're like, oh no, we better walk and show him the proper respect that he is due. I assume that's the reason why. I don't know why. It's very funny. Before we move forward, I want to do the IMDb game with all of you for Idris Elba. If you had to guess what IMDb says are the 4 films he's known for, what 4 films would you
Important
pick?
note, it's not just films, right? It's TV shows?
Films and TV shows,
so then
right.
that's got to be Luther, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
To me, it's The Wire has to be number 1. That's what I got introduced to him, and he's so endemic in that.
Mandela.
Okay.
The Animals.
Oh,
Jungle
yes,
Book?
the one about the town.
No.
The one where he plays the cop who's a water buffalo, right?
Oh,
it's the fox and the bunny.
Yeah,
Zootopia.
Zootopia.
He's also the Shere Khan in the
in
the Jungle Book,
Yeah.
the live action Jungle Book.
Right.
Okay. I don't know how much they're updated. If they're updated pretty recently, I think the Suicide Squad might be one of them.
Yeah, I don't know if they generally update quite that fast for this. But again, who knows what the IMDb algorithm is. So we've got, let's see, what were the 4 at this point? It was Luther, The Wire, Mandela, and then you also had the Jungle Book and Zootopia in there.
Probably this one.
And you think Thor, the first Thor?
I'd say one of the MCU movies, but no idea which one it would be.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you, you're not looking good with your guesses so far. His first movie that's on there is Beasts of No Nation, which is a 2015 Netflix movie that he had quite a bit of buzz for. The second film is The Losers, a completely different comic book adaptation that he was in that I think speaks well for how he got into Suicide Squad, because it very much has that same sort of vibe. The third one is Thor Ragnarok, so you're right, one of the MCU films did make it on here. And the last one is Mandela. Surprisingly, neither of the TV shows. So it's an interesting list. Like a lot of stuff I wouldn't have expected popping up on here for him.
I like playing this game, but I got to say, IMDb is starting to approach the Oscars to me in their level of like, I don't have any understanding how they're making these decisions.
It's a peculiar list.
Kind of from the other side. So Heimdall is a character who appears in Norse mythology. The Norse is Heimdallr, I think is how you pronounce it. And he is he's the watchman of the gods. He's often called the shining god. Ironically, he is described specifically as the whitest skinned of the gods. One more time, where I think Marvel's doing good casting and couldn't care less about that. He dwells at the entry to Asgard, where he guards the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. He required less sleep than a bird, could see 100 leagues or 100 miles, depending on translation. And I love this specific one. He could hear grass growing in the meadows and wool growing on sheep.
That would be terrible.
Right?
Can't think of anything worse than that.
Right. But it's interesting because it actually speaks to, I mean, there was a deleted scene that happened in the last set of minutes where there's actually a lead up to them arriving here. And it's horrible because it was just very expository, like, this is who Heimdall is. But they're talking about how he can hear a grasshopper fart in Niflheim and something like that. Like, they have some odd specifics that they give for him. So it's interesting that here we actually see that's probably because in the Norse mythology, they had some of these very specific things about him. It's pretty interesting.
Also interesting because I think he's the first one to really kind of call out Loki as being deceptive, at least so forcefully. According to mythology, he and Loki are sworn enemies, and they will kill each other when Ragnarok comes, as described in the Eddas. So just kind of a cool thing, especially that he clearly is not down with Loki.
Interestingly, in the comics, he first appeared in the issue with Loki and Odin, which was Journey into Mystery number 85 in October 1962. And very much was just a kind of a dwarfish type of character, bearded Viking sort of guy, just standing there on the rainbow, waiting for people. There was no observatory. It was just him standing on the rainbow, letting people by.
So Loki goes up and tries to talk to him, play some games, and Heimdall's just not hearing it. What do you think is going on in that scene?
I think that, Loki he puts all of his eggs in his trickery basket and his smooth talking, sweet smiling ability to charm people. And, it does not work on Heimdall at all. And he's just like so chastised. He doesn't even move for the entire rest of the interchange until he's dismissed, basically. Yeah. So it's, as you said, Heimdall just sees right through him. And Thor is always trying to be like, out of the way, little brother, like, I'm in charge. Yeah. Which sort of just left the space for Loki to be the whippersnapper, the trick puller.
I thought it was interesting in the script how he actually speaks to his group before he approaches Heimdall. And he has this whole thing where he's like, keep your weapons sheathed and your mouths closed. This is going to take subtlety and sincerity, not brute strength. Leave it to me. And so we still have the leave it to me, but like all of that other lead up, I'm like, wow, I'm glad that they really condensed that.
Yeah.
Plus, it also sounds like keep your weapons sheathed. Were they planning on attacking him initially? Like, what were they going to do with Heimdall here? Very strange.
Well, especially because I think we quickly realize Heimdall is in support of this mission. And my assumption is that maybe he doesn't know that Odin specifically forbade it, but he has that great fake out line where Thor says, I want to pass. And he says, never have I allowed someone to It's a fun little fake out, but you also get the sense that I feel like he feels like his pride is deeply wounded. Like he has failed somehow and he doesn't know how that happened and he needs to know, which I just thought was a really beautiful little, such a snippet, but that moment tells us so much about that character.
And it gets me every time. Every time I'm like, never. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. I get it.
It's such a great fake out. And if I had any sense that he was a playful character, I would think that he was playing with Thor. But I don't think he is. I don't think he's that sort of character. I think he is just so straight down the line with the way that his character approaches situations. I think he's just very upset that something had happened, that these frost giants had gotten by. And I think that he just delivers the never with such, such force, and then he pauses to give that emphasis. So I don't think he intentionally is trying to play with Thor's feelings here.
Kenneth Branagh is.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Heimdall doesn't seem the sort to tell a joke. He seems like he is very straightforward. He's very just like gravitas all the time.
Well, and look at his pose. He is standing there with all seriousness. Like he doesn't move. He is, essentially a statue. He looks like those statues that we see all over Asgard. And the way that he's holding, and he's got his sword there in front of him. His sword is Hofund, or the Bifrost sword. It's a weapon, but also we'll see it's the key to the Bifrost Bridge. But it's a massive sword, and he is a massive character, and he stands there like a statue. He is stoicism, really.
Yeah, it reminds me of I've never gotten to actually test this, but the guards at Buckingham Palace, who are famous for never reacting, no matter how much little tourists try to dance in front of them or other annoying things like that.
That's actually a great call. Like, he totally is that sort of guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from this minute that jumped out at folks?
Just a couple little tidbits that I thought were interesting. The Sea of Asgard is right here, and they wanted it to kind of create this giant waterfall that kind of falls off of it on all sides, and so they referenced the Salto Angel Falls down in Venezuela to use as reference. And then the other last thing was also just back to Hofund, Heimdall's sword. It was made by the dwarf smiths of Nidavellir, just like Mjolnir and Gungnir were. And but in reality, it was a prop that was designed by a swordsmith in Indiana named David Delagardelle.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. You made a sweet sword.
Yeah. And a key, as it looks like.
A sword, a key. I mean, at some point, not in this film, but we're going to see he also can activate a force field with it. So, I mean, it's there's obviously, quite a bit of stuff he can do with this thing.
I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Kingdom Hearts video game series, but you could call it a keyblade, quite literally.
Yeah, love that.
Which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. This has been a great discussion. I'm really looking forward to having you on for the next 4 minutes. We've kind of talked a bit about it, but for people who want to find more about you and the podcast you're doing and any other great stuff you're doing, let us know.
Okay. Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast is, available wherever podcasts are downloadable. And it's on the Instagrams and the Facebooks at Most Excellent Pod.
Awesome. Well, definitely please check that out. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Thank everyone who's listening for your support, and have a good day.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is One Last Ride by Martin Puringer. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.